Good day to you, one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Excitement abound. This is the first of a new kind of Justin Hawkins Rides Again content. It's a long-form podcast. We're going to be talking about the pitfalls of the music industry. I'm going to be discussing a very specific theme with my producer, Jenny May Finn. Next week, for example, is Elizabeth Jhra, who is also known as the charismatic voice. But today's episode is about James Hetfield. Now, those of you who don't know who James Hetfield is, you obviously haven't been watching this channel very often, because I always talk about James Hetfield. He's the lead singer from Metallica. And in an interview, he discussed how he finds it difficult coping with life outside of the limelight. So when he comes off stage or finishes a tour, he has to go home, and he talks about, you know, taking his bin bags out and how it's kind of like a totally different way of life and he needs to adjust to it. So I talk about my own experience with that and also various other philosophical issues surrounding this idea. The thing to remember about this episode is that it's the most awkward, stiff and unorganized episode that we have, and it's our first time doing it. We filmed a few in quick succession, so they're going to get better. But this seemed apt to use as the first one, because it's also Jenny May's first time being on camera and on a podcast in this capacity. Some of you will recognise her from her earlier work on a podcast. She has spoken in those in that environment before, but this is the first time she's been on camera. So she asked me to apologise on her behalf for not being able to communicate properly, being a bit stiff, and also licking her lips too much. I didn't notice at the time, but there you go. Anyway, it gets better, so stick with us, and I hope you enjoy it. Nice one, guys. Here we go. What shall I do? Say an introduction?
Yeah, did you start recording?
It's already recording.
Go.
Good day to you, one and all. This is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again with a new format of content. Today we're doing long form. So what's it called again, the thing?
Jaws of Victory.
This is called the Jaws of Victory. The idea being that we do a long form conversation between myself and my producer, who I've often referred to, Jenny May Finn. Regard. Wow, she's wonderful. Go on.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hey.
You all right?
I'm the producer. I'm trying to do this camera thing as well. It's really difficult.
Go back to
I
number
can't
two.
see what it's doing.
So if you,
I need to be able to see that.
No, have a look at Jenny's left hand there. You'll see that she's operating the Black Magic camera selection.
So I'm trying to introduce myself, but have the camera on the right person.
Yeah, so press 2 for Jenny
I'm
May
on
Finn.
me, yeah.
Okay, and then 1 for Justin Hawkins. Nice. Yeah. Excellent. Now, you might recognise Jenny from her previous online existence as producer and sidekick.
No, yeah. Producer of Under the Skin.
That's the Russell Brand.
Mm. And Football is Nice.
Yeah, I didn't see the football one.
And the YouTube channel for 2 to 3 years when it was more about spirituality. Up until lockdown, it commenced.
Yeah. So if so, you probably do recognise her from that. But she's a broadcasting legend in the internet. Within the internet realm, she's considered a broadcasting legend.
Broadcasting legend that no one knows.
Yeah, but that's because it's myth. Then she's a broadcasting myth that no one's ever seen before. But now we're looking at her. Isn't it great?
This is really difficult. The finger thing.
I have to stop buttoning
because I can't even see what it looks like.
But you don't have to put it on. Look, you can, that's what you look like.
I know,
and I look like this.
I know, but you know, a vision mixer usually has the vision in front of them.
That's
my timing's going to be all off. See, you just said
Yeah, but you don't need to cut to me for an We all know what it looks like when I do It's just my mouth going like this. Anyway, we'll get through it. So what's the topic today? What are we talking about?
We're extrapolating from the James Hetfield Addiction to Fame video.
But it must have a punchier title than extrapolating on the James Hetfield Addiction to Fame video. Coming direct to you. This episode is called Extrapolating on the James Hetfield Addiction to Fame video from a few weeks ago. Justin Hawkins Rides Again. You just sniffed all over that, by the way. Again. God.
Also, we forgot to say the whole name of the thing.
What is the whole name?
The Jaws of Victory, Pitfalls of the Music Trade.
So this segment herein will be referred to as Justin Hawkins Rides Again, the Jaws of Victory, Pitfalls of the Music Trade. Why is it so long?
Because it needs to fit everything in.
Well, yeah, because otherwise no one will know.
The jaws of victory makes no sense.
I can imagine people at the water cooler tomorrow. They're going to be like, "Did you see Justin Hawkins Rides Again? The jaws of victory, pitfalls of the music trade."
Extrapolating from
And then by which time
Hetfield.
somebody's already poured their water and then gone back to their desk. Oh yeah, pitfalls of the music trade, episode 1, extrapolating on the James Hetfield Addicted to Fame episode from before.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try that again. Good day to you, one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. I've forgotten it now. Hang on. Good day to you. I'll try it again. Good day to you, one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. The jaws of victory, pitfalls of the music trade, extrapolating on the James Hetfield episode where he said he's addicted to fame from a couple of weeks ago. Enjoy. Yep. Did you cut to yourself to say yep? Okay, brilliant. What are we talking about? Go on, prompt me.
Okay, so I gave you prompts for that episode, and you were working your way through them. And I wanted to see if you still had the same opinion on everything you said prior.
So we're basically doing the episode again, but longer.
But not talking just about James.
Okay, go for it.
Your on-stage persona versus your off-stage persona is what you covered the most.
Same thing.
That's an area you need to discuss.
Why? I've already said the things.
Because some people think that's not... You might be damaging one side.
Which side do they think is getting damaged?
The off-stage side.
Are there two different sides that need to be nourished in a particular way? Like you have to...
Well, he's addicted to fame because when he goes back home, he's just him sat on the sofa and with cats and taking it the garbage or trash, and he doesn't find it...
Doesn't find that rewarding?
Yeah, when surely that you should be find everything rewarding.
But what...
Like he doesn't have to scream Metallica lyrics as he's emptying the dishwasher or something.
But maybe he should. Maybe that would make it more bearable or easier. Or
But maybe...
If the trouble is highs and lows, why would you want to... So the idea is to try and bring those two elements closer together. And so some of the comments that you're seeing on the channel are saying, well then reduce the highs. Because that's all there is to it, isn't it? You've either got to raise the lows or reduce the highs to make that more manageable.
I think some people need to bring the lows up because that's a detrimental in itself too.
Of course it is. If you're just sitting on the chair and there's two cats and some bins that need to go out, I mean...
But if you are happy in the present moment, those tasks don't fit. The tasks are irrelevant. What's happening is irrelevant. It's your state of mind when you're conducting yourself in whatever it is you are doing.
The other thing is if you're sitting on a settee and you've got two cats and you're petting those and you're sitting there wishing that you're on stage playing, are you on stage playing wishing that you were sitting on a settee stroking the cats as well?
Well, you said you shouldn't be thinking about anything else.
You shouldn't.
Because it's like, it's a very focused task.
So...
But you shouldn't be doing, that's what you shouldn't be thinking about being on stage when you're with the cats. That's all, the same principle applies.
Yeah, so throw yourself into the cat stroking.
Yeah.
And make that, be present while you're doing that, and your relationship will be better with your cats.
And yourself.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And then I still think get someone else to take the bins out.
That's because you just don't, I don't like doing the bins either.
Well, I do the bins. I do the bins. But all the time I'm thinking I'd rather be playing Metallica songs in front of a stadium. I mean, I've never done that actually, but when I'm taking the bins out, I'm always thinking I'd rather be doing something else.
Yeah, but you shouldn't, because that's not going to change what's happening.
So I should just wholeheartedly, mindfully put the bins out.
Yeah, and then afterwards go about getting on stage with Metallica.
Because I never understood what mindfulness meant. It actually means just be focusing on the thing you're doing in that moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like being careful.
Yeah, because I thought that's what it sounds like. Be mindful when you cross the road. Because actually that is the same thing. Because if you're focusing on crossing the road and being present, you're much less likely to, disregard an oncoming vehicle or fall down a pothole or something. Is that the lesson, like, don't think about being on stage playing jazz piano, think about crossing the road when you're crossing the road?
Yeah, because whatever you're doing at the time...
Whatever you're doing.
Whatever you're doing at the time. Doesn't mean you can't plan ahead, obviously. Because there's moments that are dedicated to thinking and being aspirational.
Because I was thinking about what Pat always says, like our friend our mutual friend, the preeminent Highland's greatest rock journalist. He always says that part of his process is to stand at the window, looking out the window, scratching his arse. And I think he's absent-mindedly scratching his arse. I don't think he's actually focusing on that.
But he's probably taking a moment to allow thoughts to settle. Because when you let chaos settle, then new thoughts come to the forefront. That's what meditation is. It's not about clearing the mind.
Why are we talking about meditation?
I don't want to talk about meditation because I haven't done it in about 6 months, so I'm not the meditative person over here.
All right. Maybe you should.
Focus on whatever it is you're doing. If you're thinking about what you want to do in the future, then focus on doing that.
Is this our message to James and people like James who are addicted to fame? Just focus on the moment. Really put yourself into the petting of the cats. Because I think another option would be just to make your off-stage existence more exciting. Maybe doing things like skydiving.
No, I don't think so.
Not a good idea?
I think you can be sad. You can be sad and skydive.
You have to sit with the pain whilst plummeting to the earth.
Because if I'm in distress, no matter what it is I'm doing, unless it's really distracting where I have to be really focused, I can still not be happy in the moment, even if the moment's very exciting.
Well, yeah, it's all right to be sad, isn't it? And have a little mope around.
That wasn't a depressive bit.
No, it didn't sound depressive.
But that's what I mean. The come downs. That's what I was asking you.
What were you asking me?
Like when you're coming down off a show, recalibrating is difficult. It must be difficult. I used to find it difficult after Russell shows because I toured at Russell, but I was also doing the vision mix and the cues, which you might be surprised after this vision mixing.
No, I've been watching it. It's been pretty good.
I had to. I was his PA also, but I was also doing all of his podcasts and his YouTube channel and doing the show, but also looking after his stuff backstage. So for about 16 hours every day during that tour, it was like a high. And then afterwards, it would take me ages to like bring my energy levels down. And I was always alone. I didn't have like a crew, so I'd always in like a horrible little travel lodge alone up until like 1 or 2 in the morning.
A little message to the makers of Travelodge. They're not all horrible. I mean, it's just horrible because of the circumstances.
Travelodge, they've different ones. Depends where you are. But yeah, the coming down thing, what do you do?
Meaningless sensual encounters. I'm just getting drugs. No, not that. What do you mean? Like, what do I do?
To come down.
I have a little sit down, and I think I sort of...
How do you feel?
I feel... Well, when it's different. I think it's different when you're in a band because you're talking about a solitary experience. Yeah. You know, like so. It takes longer to come down. You've got no one to bounce all that energy off. I don't think. So when we come off stage, everyone takes their earplugs out or whatever, and then they have a massive shouting match, and it's not necessarily an angry one, but it's all about the post-mortem of the gig and high points and congratulating each other or having a go or just apologising for cocked up notes and stuff like that. And that process is definitely like our collective decompress. And then I just sit down for a bit. And sometimes I try and talk to people, but they're usually deaf from the show. And so then it gets a bit solitary then. So you just sit there for a bit. And then if there's an after show that you have to go to, it's kind of like, then I sort of think, do I want to go to the after show? Because if it's been a great show, then other people need to decompress as well, like your guests and the people that are going to be at the after show will also be up and excited, hopefully, if you've done your job properly. And then you've got to deal with getting out of the venue, getting there or whatever. And then, so your mindful gaze falls upon what the next steps are to complete the evening. I think it's got to be... I think part of James Hetfield's issue has got to be the fact that perhaps they're not... I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions or presumptions, but I think maybe if it's a band that doesn't hang out together in the same way that they used to, or maybe they just all have their own dressing rooms, or... You know what I mean? Like maybe they don't have each other in the way they used to. I noticed that he was talking about... What was the quote that he said when he was talking about asking his crew and his friends?
Oh, yeah. My body is tired, but my mind is still going. What do I do with that? I just ask people in the crew or friends or my assistant, hey, can you just sit down and watch TV with me?
So you notice from that list that the band is absent. He doesn't ask the people from the band.
Oh, yeah.
So that's interesting, isn't it?
Maybe...
That's the other thing, like a collaborative relationship with people that you've been working with for like, how many years is it with those guys? 40 years? No, it's not 40 years, is it? I mean, yeah, it might be though. It's the 80s, isn't it?
He was 18. He's like 60 now, isn't he?
Right, so let's say he's been doing Metallica for 40 years. And that's to be like the collaborative relationship is a combative one, and you're arguing about music all the time. And you can upset each other. That's one of the reasons why they did that documentary, Some Kind of Monster, and they were talking about how the group therapy is one of the things that keeps them going. But if you need the therapy to be able to talk those things out, then I think they're sort of living much more individual lives, so that for the good of the project, so they can come together and be effective when they need to. And they're probably great friends, but it's obvious that he's not leaning on his bandmates for support for whatever reason. So
maybe that was one of the issues.
I would say that the come down process for us is collective, and for them it's individual. It's much harder. It's harder for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't in a band per se, and comedy is a very lonely trade anyway. So comedians are not used to having people around either. They're one man. They're on stage alone. They go on stage alone. They leave alone.
They're born alone. They go on stage alone. They leave the stage alone. They die alone.
Yeah.
And in between, they do loads of brilliant jokes.
What about your ego?
What about my ego? What do you mean?
How does it affect you and your life? Has it been improved or not by your lifestyle?
What do you mean by improved? How do you improve an ego? How does one improve an ego? What's a bad ego look like? Ego has become a colloquialism. People don't even know what the word means, do they? It's like, someone's a bit big for their boots, that must be his ego or something. But it's actually a psychological term, isn't it? What does it actually mean?
It's one, isn't there, like the ID, the id, and the ego?
That's what I'm saying.
But isn't, when the ego takes over, it wants and it needs a lot in order to survive. I didn't understand it more before.
Survive what? Survive the crushing force from the other two types of ego. But it shouldn't be an opinion. This actually should be a definition.
Hold on, I'll look it up then.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's your self-esteem or your sense of self-importance.
That's what ego is defined as there.
Yeah.
Okay. The sense of self-importance. Okay, well, I think, if there's like, when you have that power to sing a song and everybody's singing it back to you, that's, as superficial as that might be, it definitely makes you feel like what you're doing matters. That's self-importance, isn't it?
Maybe that has an effect on the come down and normal life. Maybe it's all related. Like he's back home and there he is having to take out his own trash when he's so important that people will pay money to see him just sing some words. I
think people would pay him to take his trash out for him.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, if I was James Hetfield, I wouldn't take my own trash out.
You really take out the trash?
No, but I just think it's... if there's an unscrupulous journalist of some sort, and they're going to look for receipts and stuff in his bin bags, and if he's walking out there with the bin bag, it's like they're not going to go, which one's James? Oh, it's there. There he is.
Yeah, but he has a mansion, like gates and stuff.
So how far is it? It must be a really long walk as well. Then.
Well, maybe he has like an initial bin, and then he has like a housekeeper who comes and brings that out to the main bin.
I think if he's got a mansion like that, it should be a golf buggy, and then it would be a right laugh taking your bins out, wouldn't you? Put some ramps in and do a couple of skids or wheel spins or whatever.
You're so focused on the...
No, because I just don't believe that he does it. I just don't believe it.
Well, stroking a cat's, okay, or like...
I believe he strokes his cats. I do, yeah.
Or, having to put his trousers in his closet.
Why is he putting his own trousers in his closet?
Because sometimes you don't have people around all the time, and that's what I mean. If you at a time, you should be putting your own clothes away. Because a few people were saying you need to do those things, otherwise you can lose complete touch with.
Oh, is that reality. To do with? Oh, okay. So to stay grounded or something like that.
Because your ego is being like, why am I? You're doing it for him. Why am I taking my own trash out? Why am I putting my own trousers away? I'm at James Hetfield. That's just a
I'm James Hetfield, metal legend.
Yeah.
Sorry, just going into some more detail. Okay, I'm James Hetfield, metal legend. Here I am. I've just got home from tour. Somebody brings my suitcases in for me. Thank you, Ramon, or whoever his name is. What's his name? Sergio.
Okay.
And he looks nervously over at Sergio because I don't know what to do.
You've gone into a weird, like, fan fiction realm of James
let's do
Hetfield and
some James
Sergio.
Hetfield. No, James Hetfield offstage fan fiction. Because that's where the mystique is. We know exactly what happens when he's on stage. There's all fire. He's singing the songs. He's playing the guitar. But what's really interesting about an old-fashioned rock star like him is that there's still mystique. You don't know what happens behind the high walls around his mansion. We're told that he sits on a chair and strokes 2 cats and asks his crew to watch telly with him and takes his own bins out. This is not what's happening. This is him just, building up another layer of myth snow on top of the reality of the James Hetfield offstage existence. So, I put it to you, it's more like this. Private jet lands. The steps fall like that, and then security man comes out and just checks and then says something into his walkie-talkie. He says, "Come on in, James." Right. And James Hetfield walks down the steps. Somebody's behind him with his bags.
Yeah, I know who that person's like.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his own Jenny May theme carrying the bags. He gets into a blacked out, bulletproof Range Rover, driven by somebody he not only trusts but can confide in, and somebody who he can talk to. His driver might be somebody like, maybe he was ex-forces, I think, because he's got to be someone handy in case the shit does hit the fan. So he's in the back there saying, "Hello, Richard Tonnenbaum." Ex-forces, Richard Tonnenbaum. He's in the...
Okay,
he was
keep
in the
going.
SS. Anyway, so he gets
to get home.
And as he's catching up with Richard, just finding out, oh yeah, traffic's been murdered, but weather's all right. Welcome back to LA, Mr. Hetfield. So make yourself comfortable. There's some water in the door there. The bags go in another bag altogether, which is in convoy. What?
You said bags go into another bag.
Bags go into another bag, which is hanging off the back of the roof rack.
I don't think the
flapping
bags,
in the breeze.
I don't think the bags would go in a different car, because that would be frustrating for him if he got home and the cars got separated and something he wanted was in the bag, and then someone would get fired.
No, but the bags.
No, bags can't. The bags can't.
Bags go in the boot then. Okay, we'll deal. Bags go in the boot. Doors closed. Motorcade. Two guys on motorbikes, either side of him. One in front, one in the back.
No.
And there's a little flag on the bonnet. There's a flag on the bonnet with the Metallica logo on it.
Okay, this is going out of control.
All right, fair enough. So none of that stuff. Then he just drives home.
He's not the queen.
The doors to his palatial mansion open. He drives up the driveway. You can hear the sort of wheels crunching on the pebbles. The doors close safely behind him. Armed security man looks around and feels satisfied that there's nobody under the car or clinging to the sides or whatever. He comes in, opens the door. His housekeeper is there. And she has baked his favourite Lancashire hot pot.
Oh my god!
With just a dash of Worcester sauce, which isn't easy to come by in LA, but because of the contacts he has, and
why
isn't it?
You're getting lost in the details again. I'm still wondering what you're trying to prove here.
The point is, he can have anything he wants.
Yeah, we know this.
That's the point.
But even as a human, there's sometimes you need to do things by yourself.
No, but listen to this. Like, if you had all that and somebody drove you up the pathway,
I think I'd be more lonely because I literally would have no purpose in my offstage life.
I would be thrilled.
Because you're busy.
I am busy.
But you need some sort of sense of purpose. Right? Like,
why?
I don't like doing my chores either, but occasionally... I don't like doing my chores, but it's not about the chores.
What do you mean?
Like, I think it's just about he needs to be okay with that side of his life. You can't have up all the time because when there's ups, the downs are like equivalent. That's, I think.
No, they're not though. That's the problem, isn't it?
I think everything needs to move up slightly, and if you enjoy everything, then it becomes more holistic. Because if everything's too jarring and the high is what you're looking forward to because the mediocre is not fulfilling anything, then it's not good. It's like, I think it's like relationships, the dramatic ones are always really enticing because they're hitting that spot. But then they always crash all the time. Because it goes up that, like, I don't know, it's like the people who are proclaiming their love so intensely to each other then break up so intensely as well. It's never like, people don't value the, like, just really good one because it seems more boring. But if it's more holistic in itself, then you probably feel good.
When you just explain the
time.
word holistic, because I think sometimes I've got some trauma associated
As
with
in,
that.
like,
When
it's
I hear the
more-
word holistic, I think,
It's the opposite to of compartmentalization.
yeah, so it's something that affects the whole, right?
Yeah, so you think everything's just feeling good. So you're not relying on the relationship to give you the high, or everything just comes up a step. And then you probably do have to come down a little bit because if you're going up too high, it's not. If you're just chasing a high, I just don't know.
I think that's part of the reason why people drink and have parties, isn't it? Because it's a way of doing something exciting and self-destructive, knowingly self-destructive, that has the same sort of risk factor and therefore fun factor of being on stage.
But I don't like doing that because I know I'm not going to feel good in the morning. Like, I'm literally thinking about it. But if I go out and I drink just enough and have a good time, and then the next morning I feel good, it's like the whole experience is great. But if I go out and I drink too much and the next morning I have a hangover, I don't care how much fun I had the night before. The current moment is hell. Because what was the point?
The point was, the night before you were in the moment and you were present and you were having the fun and making bad decisions.
But I don't think...
And you were actually more present in the moment when you were drinking because you weren't thinking about how you're going to feel the next day.
But I probably wasn't present because I was probably shutting off a part of the presence.
Because you were self-medicating some sort of inner rage.
Yeah. Like the last party I went to, I enjoyed it a lot because just hit all the right spots in terms of like how I behaved. But I don't like the highs. I just don't get, they don't, and they're so fleeting and then they're gone. I prefer, I don't like that. I like everything to just come and it's like more of a holistic thing.
So you would like the whole ball of holisticness. There it is. Yeah. That's like your holistic overall kind of. So you have the same. When you're saying holistic, you mean like when the highs come, it drags up the lows.
Yeah, they don't.
But that's not going to work.
That doesn't drag it up. It's more like I am happy with.
You think it goes like this, don't you? You think the high means an automatically terrible low.
Well, no, I think if I'm chasing the high, then why am I chasing it? I'm trying to get away from something, you know. If I'm content, I'm not content all the time, but I want to get to a point.
Yeah, I've noticed.
where shut up.
Right.
Where I'm content. So everything I'm doing, I have the same sense of I'm enjoying this. Like I'm just enjoying this. But like, oh, if I do that, that's going to be so much fun. Then you do it, and then you have to go back to what you were doing before.
And then the fun stops, and then you're sad because the fun has stopped.
Yeah, well, you just
can't you be grateful for the fun that you've had though?
Yeah.
So, what's the problem?
So do you think there's no lows, and everything, all the highs are great, and then you're just grateful for them?
Yeah, I do now. It's difficult at the time. I understand why James Hetfield is struggling with it, but at the same time, there's so many things in just daily life that are a joy. Having children, that is like way more resonant than any of the highs. I mean,
but is that because they're constant?
Well, they aren't a constant in my life. I'm an absent father.
Yeah, but like she is a constant, as in like she doesn't disappear out of the ether.
Well, nor does being in a band. Nor does music. Music doesn't disappear. Music's always there for you.
Yeah, but is having a child a more like all-consuming feeling?
No, but having a child is like constant peril, constant danger. You never know what they're going to do. You never know. The whole point of being a father or being a parent is to try and keep the child alive until it's, able to fend for itself. That is actually the first, probably the most important role that you have as a parent, right? So you're just like constantly on edge. I suppose it's maybe it's thrilling in the same way as music is, or performing. Do you know what I mean? Like but it isn't a constant when you only see them occasionally. And now my child is kind of a bit older, so my relationship with her is like the moments that we have together. Just try and make the most of it, and then make it so that nothing else interferes with the fun that we're having and the quality time that we're spending. And then you go and do the music, and then you focus on the music, and so whatever you're doing is maybe being a dad has helped with that. But I think I'm not sure how I'm going to feel when if I'm still doing music when she leaves home or something like that.
Why?
I'll have to make another one. Make another child.
But is that you just getting addicted to that thing?
Maybe, yeah.
Because
addicted to being the best parent you can be.
No, addicted to having something that you detract from your sense of self.
My sense of self is doing just fine, thank you. I'm Justin Hawkins. Oh, sorry.
I mean, like, because I think a lot of people do it. They're like, if you have a child, then you'll feel whole. But you should feel that feeling anyway. And like having a child, you should also feel that, because I think if you're going to have a child, you should obviously dedicate your life to them. But that shouldn't be. If she leaves home, you have to just figure out why you suddenly need to fill that gap again.
I think I would play golf or get into something.
I don't think you'd play golf instead of having a child.
I think people do. I don't know. Well, I think the point I was making is that it would be something to do with sports would be helpful, and not necessarily a self-destructive distraction technique. I said it in the episode we did about this. I just think that running's a really helpful one for me. Playing football is really good because there's a ball to focus on and nothing else matters.
But I feel that with football too. But
Yeah.
I also wish I could have that feeling where I feel good about everything I'm doing.
Yeah,
Why does it have to be a sport? Why does it have to be something that's putting you on edge and thrilling all the time? Why can't I just feel okay as a person? Why do I need this thing to make me feel okay?
These all sound like the titles that you sometimes put on things. Why do I need this thing to make me feel okay?
I'm just trying to talk about James's thing as well, though, because he's coming
Yeah.
down, he doesn't like stroking his cats.
What?
He's coming down from the show and then he doesn't want to just sit with his cats. He finds it boring.
Yeah. So go and do something. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you can't constantly be doing something. You're going to have to...
I am constantly doing something.
I'm always doing things too, but there's always moments when you're not doing something.
I had one moment 2 years ago when I wasn't doing something, and I went f***ing crazy.
Why?
Because I was didn't have anything to distract myself. I was on my own. I think I was sitting with the pain and the sadness. I had some very self-destructive thoughts. And then I said, well, time to do a podcast.
What?
or let's do some archery, or I'm going to go for a run, something like that.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
know,
good.
That's how you do it. That's how I do it.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
What's the question?
Why you can't... Why there's a disjunct in how you feel about the things you're doing.
When James Hetfield's talking about people sprinkling magic dust on him, and how great it feels when he's being James Hetfield, the Metallica guy. And then I suppose the implication is that the magic dust isn't being sprinkled on him when he's sitting at home with his cats. I think some people probably do things like charity work and stuff that looks on the surface to be altruistic, sort of, performing service to those less fortunate, and then that's enjoyable, and using your gifts and your profile to raise awareness of vulnerable people and animals and situations and trying to help, and then you feel good about that too. Is that, I mean, I know it's not true altruism, but I don't think there actually is such a thing as true altruism, but I think that's something that you can focus on in your spare time if you're not.
That's in the 12 steps though, isn't it?
I wouldn't know about the 12 steps.
One of them is doing something good for someone else, but without the main caveat is, but you don't tell anyone and no one knows.
Yeah, I always keep my charitable. I know. That's nobody should.
But also, I have an issue with that because I don't think you should feel good necessarily. You shouldn't be doing something good because you get a feeling from it. Oh, I'm helping that person because it's going to make me feel good. You should help that person even if you get an electric shock every time you help them.
Yes, but the thing is, for a person who's in a position like James Hetfield, you have to make a sacrifice and take yourself out of your protected bubble to go and do something like that. You know, he's not going to be walking down the road and seeing an elderly person who's poor fall in the road and say, I've fallen and I can't get up. He's not going to be there to, and if he is, he's got somebody there who'll quickly pick that person up.
I wasn't thinking he was walking down the street and had to help.
No, but that's no, but I'm just saying you don't find yourself in those situations where you can actually make a difference unless you make the effort to do that. When you're in a privileged position, you're protected from having to witness the effects of these, the factors that make people vulnerable. And
yeah, but you can do other things like anonymously donate things.
Yeah, but that's just giving money. There's no excitement in giving money to people.
That's what I mean. My issue is there should be a feeling of excitement from it.
Well, you can do the money thing as well. I mean, obviously people should always do that, but I think it's a different question. At this point, we should probably talk about the process of doing this actual broadcast, really. Podcast, yeah. I always call it broadcast.
I guess it's a broadcast.
Yeah.
Podcast is audio. People are always like...
Oh, yeah.
But people...
Go on. No, you don't have to go to me when I say, oh, yeah. It's all right.
People call your YouTube channel a podcast and it's not a podcast. But then some people on your YouTube channel ask you to do a podcast. But I'm like, it's just not a podcast.
So what's the definition of a podcast? Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I don't know the definition. This might be coming from my need to articulate myself properly. It's going to look up the definition of everything. A digital audio file.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So this isn't technically
made for downloading off the internet.
Right. So we're going to call this a broadcast with the possibility of it being converted into a podcast, right?
Yep.
So at this point, I think we should probably talk about the anger. Because, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because we're trying to evolve the type of content that we're doing on Justin Hawkins Rides Again. So this is a sub-category within that's long form, and it's us discussing these things. But I noticed, and I think everybody who's watching this will notice, that you became quite angry just now. Why was that?
Because I felt like I wasn't articulating myself properly, and then the need to articulate myself makes me say things that as my brain tries to find ways to articulate myself, and then it just isn't correct.
But is that partly because I just don't understand some of the concepts that you're talking about?
No, because remember at one point, I think it started when we started talking about ego, and then I couldn't figure it out, and then I maybe started... I don't like miscommunicating. But
the reason why ego is a sticky area for me is because I don't necessarily think that when people talk about ego, they're talking about ego. Do you know what I mean?
I think we misunderstood each other a few times. I think there was one bit where I was saying something and you were interpreting it one way, and actually that wasn't what I was talking about at all. I can't remember which bit. You kept going, but that's why that happens. And I was like, but I wasn't talking about that.
Ah. Yeah, well, there was a bit when you were saying... I can't remember it either.
And it might have been the holistic thing, because it's really difficult to... articulate it. I articulated it earlier in the episode. Remember when we were talking about mindfulness and carefulness, and that was a bit where I was like, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
And then it got all confused and tangled, probably because we started talking about egos and highs and lows.
But I think, for my own benefit and also for other people who are like me and they don't understand a lot of those terms, because mindfulness is definitely like something that's everybody's started talking about in the last few years. And I feel like it might be a bit like woke. Like somebody used the expression performative wokeness, and that might be something that I was talking about when it comes to like altruism and doing altruism because it makes you feel good. Therefore, it's not altruism in the truest sense.
Yeah, but the thing is I'm not angry that you're not understanding me. I'm angry that I'm not communicating effectively. That's why I was angry. Also, I'm trying to figure these things out in my brain.
I know. Well, this is the thing. This is going to be a type of broadcast that evolves, and this is part of it. So you've come along for the ride, and I hope you're enjoying watching us arse around and the chaos. And we'll get there, though. We established that James Hetfield's journey is a solitary one. It doesn't need to be.
He needs to hang out.
He needs to love his bandmates more.
But maybe maybe it's not good. Maybe they don't have the type of relationship that's conducive. Maybe it's even worse when they hang out.
Do you think that because they enable each other and then some of them cope in different ways, and then the sort of the decompression processes are dangerous to one another?
Yeah.
Like, because I can't imagine Lars Ulrich sitting down with James and his cats. They're probably sick of the sight of each other, having done all this amazing stuff.
Yeah, because they've created a monster in a way.
Some kind of monster.
Yeah, they'd have to give up Metallica.
Oh, we don't want Metallica to end, do we? No.
But will I go back to these questions?
Go on, yeah, let's go.
So, the on-stage, off-stage persona.
Yeah.
And you want them intertwined. And I put in, what if you lose yourself in the liminal space between them? Well, you don't, you know the way sometimes like, there's the thing called masking, you know?
Masking.
Where you're putting on a face. Some people are good at it. Some people, when you learn it as a kid, I was bad at it. People said I was too blunt. or like when people are hanging out and they know what to say. How do you know what you're supposed to say? Like they'd be like, "Hey, how are you?" And you'd be like, "Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?" That's not natural for me to say.
Yeah.
Someone says, "How are you?" I go, I'm okay."
I feel like Brian May's like that as well. Actually, he's got that vibe. Well, you know, it could be a bit like that.
Yeah, like if someone asks me a question, I will then answer said question.
Yeah.
The question is not a pleasantry, like
sometimes I say to you, "Hey Jenny, how you doing?" And you go, "Wow, how long have you got?"
No, I don't.
No, you don't. That's
Well,
true.
you're good at it. You're good at talking to people in like in social gatherings, but you might not feel like that's who you are, though. That's what I
know. I might have talked about this before, but when I went to the rehabilitation centre to try and get a handle on my addiction problems, the guy who was, like the consultant psychologist, I suppose, who was an addiction specialist, sat opposite me and had observed me in various different sort of, healing environments like group therapy sessions and stuff like that. And he looked at me and he went, "You're very likable, aren't you?" Like that was a bad thing. And I was like, "Yeah, am I? Thanks, I think." Right? Didn't sound like he was complimenting me, but I couldn't understand in that moment why he would see that as a bad thing. But the way he said it implied that it was just part of my addiction problem.
Well, is it addiction to validation from people? Like, or do you get a kick out of you meet a person and then, I know how to interact with that person
in a way that makes them like me, yeah. Well, I think wanting to be liked or having the validation thing, that's that comes from, I think that probably comes from like my feeling about music, which is like, if you're creating music, it's for an audience, and sometimes that audience is just your nan or my granddad. I used to make tapes of organ music that I did, and then recorded them, did some artwork, and I'd give it to my granddad and my great uncle for Christmas. Nobody else would necessarily hear it. That was the audience. And then the validation that I'd get from my granddad being proud of me was the whole reason why I was doing it. You know, I never listened to those things again, but it's like I did it for him. Yeah. So it wasn't, I was doing it for the validation, but I was creating art for an audience. And I've got this thing in my head that without an audience, there's no point in doing art at all. Because what is the point? Why would you paint something and then just put it in paint something and put it in my potato storage room?
Yeah, unless you like looking at it. Because a lot of people create art and music. If you listen to talking to your audience, loads of them are musicians and no one's heard any of their music. Does that mean their art's not
okay? But
good?
then there are definitely some people that write songs for themselves, but in those instances, the audience is themselves, and you can be the audience and the creator at the same time, can't you? I mean, but the point I'm making is somebody's got to look at it and somebody's got to listen to it to make it worthwhile.
Well, what about the audience that they make it for people, but they don't ever get an audience? What's that mean?
Well, I mean, I think the struggle that every musician has is finding their audience and establishing what the demographic is of the people that are interested in the art that they're creating, isn't it? That's actually that's why if you're a major label band, presumably you spend a lot of time thinking about who your label partner is and what kind of reach they have and what kind of people they can get your music to via whatever means necessary. A lot of the time that's going to be, who's the radio plugger? Which stations is it going to be on? Who's the distributor? How effective are they at creating these vinyl products and getting them in shops and things like that? It's about every sort of partnership that you have in the music trade is selected, and you go into these partnerships thinking, okay, this is how I connect with my audience via these people. These are a conduit to the people that will consume and listen to the things that I'm creating.
What about Nick Drake?
Nick Drake?
He doesn't longing for an audience.
Yes, but Nick Drake was working with people like Richard Thompson. He's making music that was going to be heard.
But in the first sales of his albums, it was like not that many people compared to other people.
Well, our first single was I Believe in a Thing Called Love. We pressed 200 copies of it, and obviously we sold them all, and it went to number 180 in the charts, and we were chuffed.
Yeah, but is that the most important thing?
No, I don't think numbers is the important thing, but what I'm saying is the audience. You're creating stuff for an audience. I think it's that, that stupid thing that people always say, well, if a tree
falls in the woods but no one's around, does anyone hear it?
Yeah, but I would go further than that. I would say if a tree falls in the woods and nobody witnesses the tree falling in the woods, what was the point of the tree falling in the woods in the first place?
But I guess it's all about external validation. That's where a lot of pain comes from if you're not receiving it.
But that's the nature of having an audience.
Yeah, if you want an audience.
Enough about my sex life.
But that's what the likability thing is. Maybe every person you meet is like this new audience and you're bringing your on-stage persona to that person. But does it have...
So everything's a performance then? Like every interaction that you have is a performance?
Until it's not, though.
And then what? So that's when the mask slips?
Yeah.
And what happens then?
You tell me.
Oh, well, I wasn't even aware that I was masked.
What happens when your mask slips?
Then I turn out to be nicer than people thought I was.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
But what's...
Because I think for the early part of our career, I came into a music trade where throughout the 90s there'd been feuds, and the way the sort of British music press and actually the press in general likes to encourage these sort of disputes and arguments, and they love reporting on those things, and it's partly because of piercing the mystique and showing that people are actually human and they're passionate about the art that they make, and they'll defend it rigorously by slagging off people that don't like it. And I actually find that stuff really good fun, and it's something that I was playing at, whereas now I don't care about any of those things. That was never a real value of mine. It was kind of like when people are saying, oh, your music's a joke and stuff, and I was inviting that, because I think when we were doing stuff which had one foot on each side of that line, we were hoping to be misunderstood. So that's a different kind of masking, you know what I mean? Like we weren't necessarily, we were actually being abrasive. The kind of mask that I was wearing was one that was like, yeah, f*** you. I was a punk, I was just like, well, f*** you. And Noel Gallagher says something bad about our band. I'll say it back, and I'll say it much stronger. Lemmy says something bad about a band, I'll say something back stronger. And everybody, I was just playing the game. And then you meet people like Lemmy, and then you get on like a house on fire. He realizes that I'm nicer than I was pretending to be, and he's nicer than he was pretending to be. That's an example of when the mask slips and it's what's underneath is just soft, you know.
But what about the mask that the therapist was talking about?
I think the mask that the therapist, I don't know whether he was necessarily talking about the mask. What if I went into rehab, and on the day I went to rehab, I knew I'd never drink again. I knew that. I was so determined. So I walked into that situation already knowing that I was healed, and this was just me equipping myself with the things that I would need to maintain sobriety. That's how I saw it. And I was completely open in all of the group therapy things, and I made some friends there that are still friends today. You know, people that really connected with me because I was being myself. Some people used to say that in that therapy group that I was kind of like a victim of the success that we'd had. I didn't buy that either, because I felt like I was an agent of it. You know, it's like I built up this ludicrous rhino skin, which is the mask, went into battle, just told everybody exactly what I thought in a really, sometimes I was quite nasty, and I hoped that I was doing it with some sort of comedic effect, but that isn't me. I think I'm actually a nice guy. What do you think? Do you think I'm a nice guy?
I think that you're good at social situations, but I think that you're quieter and more introverted.
Yeah.
And sometimes that you're nicer to people. I think you actually are really nice, but sometimes you're good at performing nice as well.
Yeah, well, I can be nice. I could if I in my life, if there's somebody who's nice to me, I'm nice back, and it's all good. If somebody's mean to me, I'm nice back, and it's all good. And there's often situations, especially in the music trade, where I can look somebody in the face and know that they're an asshole, and know that they've done things that have hindered, you know, the development and the careers of people that I respect, and even myself, and I'll look them straight in the eye and be nice to them. I don't necessarily need to challenge people like that. To me, it's more important to know. And I think being nice to people is a disarming way to get a read on them, and it equips you to be able to actually go into those situations knowing what you're up against. And if you're always nice, they don't know anything about you.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, as in the niceness.
But it's not necessarily a mask, because it's like the reason why it's so effective is because I'm like that, and I know how to be like that because that's what I'm like. So the mask that I use in those situations,
so it's an inflated version of your nice side.
No, I suppose it's that thing of your performance and your real life intertwining.
But does anyone know James Hetfield's real personality?
Well, I think part of the problem is that does James know it?
I don't know. Everyone says he's a nice guy.
I think he's a nice guy.
Oh, he's another nice guy.
in summary, then, of everything we discussed, I think James he's got a handle on this. That's why he was talking about getting people to sit with him when he's experiencing the lows, and there's people that he's talking about who have been there for the highs as well. It is interesting that he doesn't list his bandmates when he's talking about the people that he can lean on in a situation like that. So I would say, try and find love for the people that you're collaborating with. You know, I know another musician who's going to remain nameless, but he was a dear friend of ours and a great songwriter. And suddenly he had a hit, and he was obliged to tour it. And because it was just him and a producer that made the record with some session musicians, he went out with a load of people he didn't know and couldn't handle touring at all. He just didn't have the emotional capacity to cope with these stresses that we're talking about. So he stopped. You know, so one of the options that you touched on earlier was to just stop. That would actually do it, because then you wouldn't have the highs to worry about the lows, to worry about offsetting the lows against. The other option would be Get back into therapy with your bandmates. Make part of the ritual of a gig, the sort of post-mortem deconstruction, decompress moment with the members of the band, and maybe exclusively the members of the band. Nobody else around. Just do that. Have a dedicated period of post-mortem after every show. And try and find a way to collectively decompress so you're not on your own. I think a lot of the trouble is going to be solitude. And it does sound like a lonely existence if it's him with 2 cats and some bin bags. Again, the bin bags, I would doubt.
You're really focused on the bin bag.
I just can't believe it. Anyway, those are some suggestions for those of you who want to offset the highs against the devastating lows. All that remains is to thank Jenny May Finn, my producer, for her debut on camera. into the camera.
Oh no!
Wave into the camera. Hey. There she is. Lovely stuff. All right, nice one. Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Shall I do the bit? Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, watch one of these 2 videos, and keep coming back. We're going to be doing long-form stuff periodically, and all of your Justin Hawkins Rides Again favourites. See you on the ice. Nice one, guys. Okay.